In jiu-jitsu, they have a saying, technique conquers all. And I definitely feel that technique can conquer all, even a bad diet, but only for so long.
Created live on Fireside.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Athletic Definition. My name is Coach Ray Z. Today, we're going to be talking about, does eating healthy matter, especially for competitions, to win championships, to get to that elite level, even professional level. This kind of started, well, I'm into nutrition, been into nutrition for, oh, since I started working out. And even when I didn't work out, I kind of would always pay attention to sports. Can't say I never worked out, but just not consistently. So I was watching Mr. Beast on YouTube. Mr. Beast was going to do no eating for 30 days. And I thought, well, this seems like a stunt. It's just to get ratings. But I watched it. He had doctors the whole time watching him, and he couldn't go 30 days. He ended up going 14 days without eating. And then after I watched that, it was interesting. I kind of learned a lot, and I was surprised he went 14 days. I'm like, man, that's a long time to go without eating. And then there's another YouTuber that I watch, and he has a channel called Food Theorist, and he did an episode following up on what Mr. Beast did, and he thought if it was a stunt. And then from there, I learned about a guy named Angus. I can't remember his last name, but Angus went without eating for about 300 and like 82 days. He took water, a couple supplements. He did it all for loss. He used to be in the Guinness Book of World Records. They no longer put it there because they don't want to encourage bad eating behaviors. Although when he did it all under medical supervision. I think he went from like over 400 pounds to weighing 180. He was only going to fast for a little bit. And then from there, he ended up, uh, I guess he didn't believe the doctor. So he fasted for over a year, and he lost the weight, and he ended up, having his life, and he had kids and everything. So I was interested in that. And then I just started thinking, well, maybe I should just kind of rethink about food and what we consume. And then I listened to Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan had Mikey. I can't remember his last name, or I'll probably mispronounce it, but it was the JRE MMA show, and it was episode 127. This He's 25 years old, so I'll call him a kid. He fights in what's called One Championship, which is cool because the day after I had Winston Hamos, who fights for One Championship as well. Joe Rogan had that guy Mikey. So One Championship is kind of like UFC, but they're gonna mix it up a little bit. They're within their fights, they're gonna have jiu-jitsu, MMA, and kickboxing to kind of blend it. Well, this kid right here, he's been training since he's 4 years old. Okay. And since he's been training since he's four, he's now 25. So he's been pretty much training jujitsu his whole life, which is pretty fascinating. And so when you have that much technique and when you've been training for that long, that's where I say it doesn't really matter what you eat. And the reason I say that is because as you listen to the podcast more and more, you find out that as he got older, he started eating what he likes. So if you do wrestling or jujitsu, you usually cut weight, or if you do some sort of fighting, boxing, MMA, and you cut weight. And cutting weight could be bad for you depending on how you do it. There's lack of dehydration. That's why in a lot of the sports now they're starting to ban it. So he said he kind of messed up his system growing up. And since he was growing up, what he did was he feels that he no longer basically can his whole diet changed. He can't eat what he wants, or he doesn't have like a fill button. So it kind of messed him up. So this kid has a oven, his own pizza oven, and he makes pizza every day. What he does is he says that he doesn't eat anything in the day, and then at nighttime he'll eat that. He'll eat a pizza every day, and a sahi bowl, which is like an ice cream, really good. Probably has a lot of sugar, and that's what he eats every day. Now, this guy is a multiple champion. He will be fighting for a belt, I believe, at the end of August on Amazon Prime. You will see him on the One Championship. He's won every division, I think, in gi, from what I remember correctly. And his diet was just really, really surprising to me. I'm like, okay. Now, one thing he kept mentioning is sustainability, that for him, it's sustainable, sustainable. And I think it is sustainable because you're 25 years old. And Joe Rogan said he had never heard of anybody with that type of diet, which to me is a little surprising, but Joe Rogan doesn't really follow other sports besides MMA, boxing, kickboxing. So I have heard of other people with really, really bad diets. And, that guy Mikey, not only does he trains jujitsu all day, he'll train jujitsu, he says like 20 hours a day, and then he'll just eat once a day, and he only eats what he loves. So for him, he has tried all the different diets, and he says that that works the best for him. And I think, great, if that's working for you. But in the long run, I don't think that that's sustainable. And that's what he kept repeating. It's sustainable. It's sustainable. Your body can digest food differently in its 20s than it can in its 30s and its 40s and 50s and so on, the way you look. Um, Fan of Dr. Wayne Dryer as well. So that's something he would always mention. Don't fall in love with your body. It's going to change. And should also be your eating. I competitions I do. Sometimes you take these gel packs that are not the best for you, and they give you energy because it's basically like broken down food already, so your body doesn't have to work breaking it down, and it gives you that little boost. Say for example, when you're running a marathon, so there's all kinds of different supplements you could take, and not all of them are good. And then you think about all the food in the United States, how much of it is banned in other countries that we keep eating, like bread. Bread in the United States has this chemical that they put in yoga mats to make it soft. There's a list that I found of 50 foods banned in other countries that are not banned here. And then we have food deserts. And then if you think about it, a lot of the pro athletes, some of them come from inner cities with not a lot of money. So they're not growing up eating the best foods. And me and the things I've done, completed 57 marathons, got my blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm still playing with my 25-year-old kid basketball, very active. Many times I didn't have money and I wasn't eating the healthiest foods. And you could let that stop you, and if you want to be like kind of negative and be like, well, I ate crappy, I shouldn't even work out because it's not even benefiting me. And yes, they say you cannot work out a bad diet, but you can definitely win championships. And I'll give you kind of a list. So as I mentioned, that guy Mikey, training jujitsu for what, 21 years. He's 25 years old. So for 21 years, he's been training jujitsu. When you've been training jujitsu for that long, your technique is going to be excellent. He also mentioned he has a little bit of OCD. So to jujitsu is like it's like a problem, He trains all his partners. Uh, Say he does a move to them, and they can't figure it out. He'll show them how he did it so that he can't keep doing that, and then that's how he evolves. So he's a very smart kid, except when it comes to the eating, as I mentioned, he said he's tried all the other diets, but he wasn't happy, and he feels that that raises his cortisol levels. So him eating stuff that makes him happy, and by kind of being like, back in the day where you would hunt for your food all day and then eat at night, that's what he tries to recreate. There was a ESPN 30 for 30 documentary called The Todd Marinovich Project. Now, Todd Marinovich, his dad was a NFL strength and conditioning coach, and he was just a really good coach. When he had his kid, Todd Marinovich, he didn't let him eat candy or anything, really strict, put him in working out, fundamentals, techniques. He was poised to be a star. He was a star at USC college, and then he went into the NFL. Probably from all that restriction, it's been a while since I watched the documentary, maybe 2 years. He started getting into drugs, and he kind of threw away his NFL career. And he would hop in and out. I think he tried to play in Canada, blew out his knee, and then he had an opportunity, I think, with the XFL. And when played, he got addicted to heroin. And even with all that, when he played in a couple games, you could just still see he was better than a lot of the people on the field. And to me, that is because of the technique that he's been doing for so long is going to conquer someone who's been doing it, maybe start playing football at age 10 or 15. So it really doesn't matter what you're doing. you could be a champion, you could win championships, but in the long run, you, in my opinion, you won't be like a Tom Brady who's still playing later on into your years or be able to keep playing longer. Maybe your career will be shorter if you don't make changes that's needed. As I said, I've been into fitness forever. So this is an old magazine that I have. It is called Muscular Development. This magazine is from 1999, and the reason I got it is because it had. This is when Oscar De La Hoya was a big boxer. Me being Mexican American, I I used to be really into him, and it showed his workout. So I got this magazine, and I kept it because it showed his workout. Now on this magazine, I remember reading this years ago, so I had to pull it out to go back. At the time, he was training with his dad, Oscar De La Hoya, and he brought in a Park, who was going to help him with the training. Now, Park said that when he first met Oscar De La Hoya, he was basically just on a very strict program of chopping wood, lumber, doing push-ups, pull-ups, ab workouts, sparring, jumping rope, and he would log about 250 to 300 rounds of sparring. But, and then he would be doing brutal levels of interval training with some weight training. And he did that all in a diet of cheeseburgers. I was trying to look it up, trying to look it up. I thought I remember him saying Big Macs were his favorite. And I remember him having a commercial with McDonald's. I think later, after he won the gold medal, I think he did one about chicken nuggets. So Oscar De La Hoya won a gold medal in 92. Then in 1996, he won his first championship in boxing. And this is before he had proper nutrition or knew what nutrition was. He did this all on cheeseburgers. Now, he also started boxing at a very young age. In jiu jitsu, they have a saying, technique conquers all. And I definitely feel that technique can conquer all, even a bad diet, but only for so long. Now, there's other athletes from all walks of life, all types of sports. Chad Ochocinco, I don't know if he still has that name. He changed it. He might have changed it back. This guy was a football player for the Cincinnati Bengals, and after he could no longer play in the NFL, he tried out for one of the MLS soccer teams in Seattle. I can't remember who it was, but this guy's just a remarkable athlete. I think he came out in Dancing with the Stars as well. But if you hear his diet, it was pretty much insane. He starts off with McDonald's, Pop Tarts, which I believe Pop Tarts are banned in other countries except for this one. Uh, Soul food, dessert, Red Bulls. He said he would randomly get drug tested by the NFL, and that the only thing that they're going to find in his bloodstream is McDonald's and Red Bull. So he's openly and just a top athlete. So some of it, besides technique, is you're born with that fast twitch muscle. You're born with that speed. You're born with that strength. Doesn't mean you don't work out to keep it or develop it, but some of it is genetics. Then you have Vince Young. Now, this guy is a perfect example of maybe why, if you eat nothing but bad stuff, you don't really last too long. But Vince Young was a national champion. He beat USC. I think he was from Texas. And then he went to the Titans. I think he got NFL Rookie of the Year. And then after that, seems like he was having some mental issues, and he retired. He was having a hard time dealing with people booing him, if I recall right. I don't think he was used to that in college. He never got booed. But he was known to spend $5,000 a week at the Cheesecake Factory, which is known as one of the most unhealthiest restaurants. Then there's Marshall Lynch, who loves Skittles, running back in the NFL, won a Super Bowl with what was it, Seattle Seahawks. Loves Skittles, eats them during the game, munches them on the game, and he loves them so much he ended up doing a commercial for them. Then I start thinking of the candy. I'm like, well, you know who else ate a lot of candy? Lamar Odom from the Lakers. So you can win NFL championships, you can win boxing championships, you can win jujitsu championships, and in the NBA too. Lamar Odom, bunch of candy. He would eat it for breakfast. He just had candy all the time. Also, Dwight Howard, another candy guy. Then there's I don't really know who this guy is, but he played baseball for the Detroit Tigers. Justin Vanderleer. He was known to eat Taco Bell every time before a game. There's Olympic swimmer Ryan Lococh, who basically ate McDonald's in the 2008 Olympics. Professional boxer Mayweather has so much money, but he likes to eat Burger King and McDonald's. Uh, and it goes on and on with a list of pro athletes that just eat junk. Then you hear about the Olympics, that in the Olympics they get free McDonald's. So NBA player, what's his name, Andrew Bowitt, and there's quite a few that when they go to the Olympics, that's all they'll eat, and they win gold medals. And so we're talking about supposedly eating the worst food that's bad for you. And I'm not saying it's not, but you're still winning championships. Now, I've had this conversation with different types of medical experts and nutritionists and other coaches that I know. And some of them try and tell me it's in spite of all that. Imagine if they didn't do that. But really, I personally feel that everybody's different. There's no one size fits all for everybody. Maybe you can eat this, maybe you can't eat that. Maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't. I was mentioning about those gels that I take for a long time, and I've been running for 16 years now, marathons. So in the beginning, I used to be able to take the gels, no problem. And then for a while, my stomach was like, "Oh, I can't take these gels anymore." So then I went to gummies, and then after a while, my stomach is like, "You can't eat this anymore." And so then I went back to gels. And I've tried different gels with less bad ingredients because I'm aware of that as well. But really, too, now, like the more you think about it, especially in the United States, it seems we have just a bunch of junk and everything is processed. And I mean, I can go down the list. It says pork, the way it's done here, is not sold in other countries, like in European nations. Packaged beef is not sold in other countries, but sold here. Mountain Dew, Skittles, it has some chemical in there that uh, keeps the color from going away, but in other countries it's banned. So there's all these chemicals that, okay, even if you're the healthiest eater, if you're going to Whole Foods, if you have the money for that, there's still a lot of bad ingredients going in there. How much corn syrup is in there, or that other one, fructose syrup, which is basically sugar. All our bread is basically pure sugar. So even if you're trying to eat healthy, even if you're trying to do the best thing, even if you're looking for, chickens that are free range and eggs, it's like it's all manipulated by big money to make money, and they'll fatten up the foods and steroids, things of that. So it's really hard to say that, oh, well, eating a bad diet is going to ruin your chances of becoming a winner or a champion, because I've listed already many pro athletes who just have basically proven it. And then the more I looked into it, I just saw a list of nothing but more and more athletes, and people saying how athletes have a bad diet. Some of it is because lack of information. Some people are athletes, they're not nutritionists, they're not doctors, and vice versa. So I'd like to, if anybody wants to come up on stage, you're more than welcome to, or leave a comment on Twitch or Instagram or anywhere else you can find me, and let me know what you think about foods and the toxins. There was another article that I found that it says that there's a lot of toxins in our food, and it says that people with high levels of physical activity, and this is why, even though they say you can't outwork out a bad diet, regardless, if you're going to eat bad food or junk food or fast food, my belief is if that's all you can afford, don't condemn your food. Be grateful for the blessings of the food that you do have, because there's other places, third world countries, where they don't even have that. We happen to be in a country where, well, I'm in the United States. I know I have listeners all over the world, but there's countries where they don't have obesity problems, and it's because they have food shortage problems. So, regardless, say you're in high school, say you're in college a lot, before the rules were changing, you weren't allowed to work full time to make money, and you probably could only afford Taco Bell or McDonald's or some junk food. Now, you're trying to become a pro. I could think of Drew Brees, NFL Super Bowl quarterback. He in college, visited what is that name of that restaurant? It's like a sub sandwich place. He loved it so much he ended up buying a franchise, Jimmy Johnson's or Jimmy G's. But he said during college he ate that 3 times a week. So if the food and the nutrition is so important, then why are all these people able to do it? Now, most athletes in this country seem to be peaking at young ages. There are some sports where later on your maturity, and if you change your game and the position depending on your position, where you could have a longer career, longer longevity. If you are just always driving into the court and then you change it to a jump shot, you could last longer. But then there's also pro athletes that eat junk food, and you know that they're out of the NFL or the NBA because they didn't take care of themselves. Sean Kemp is, for example, one guy that I could think of. Later on in his career, he put on weight and he just was not the same. Now, you think if he would have taken that Tom Brady approach, or recently, I think in February, there was an article written where LeBron James spends $1.5 million dollars on his body and his training, and Chris Paul spends $1 million dollars on his training. And I'm sure that that all has to do with nutrition. So, and LeBron James is what, 38 now? So if you want to be longevity, I and the best of the best, how okay, you want to be good? Great. Or do you want to be good or you want to be great? You want to be the best ever or you want to be great? So there's levels to everything. If you are satisfied with one championship and that's it, maybe you let yourself go. The other thing that I'll do a future show on is it's really difficult to stay motivated, stay hungry, keep that eye of the tiger. Once you start making a lot of money and you have access to finer foods, maybe because you grew up in the inner city, because you grew up in food deserts, because all you had access to was McDonald's or Burger King or Jack in the Box or any fast food restaurant, then when you finally can start eating that filet mignon and eating healthy, you're gonna put on some weight. Not that weight is the only thing, but then you kind of just lose that luster for competition. BJ Penn mentioned it on his interview with Joe Rogan, that a lot of the up and coming fighters now, they're still hungry. They haven't got that big payday, and it's when you get that big payday that I see a lot of people's eating habits also change, and that's just because they're over consuming. So uh, and I'll post the link articles of everything that I found here in case you want to check it out for yourself. I'm still backed up on some of them, so I got to go back on some of the past episodes and show it to you. And thank you everybody for joining, who's coming in and out. Thank you, Kevin, for being in here. It's been a crazy day for me. Uh, I got bit back on 4th of July by a dog, and I had to go to the emergency room. Since then, I haven't been able to train like I'm used to. I'm supposed to be getting ready for the Lake Tahoe Triple in October, which is 3 marathons in 3 days, 78.6 miles. Basically, I would run around Lake Tahoe in 3 days. I was training really good, mentally preparing myself, physically preparing myself to do that challenge, and I wanted to demolish, no, not demolish. I wanted to obliterate my previous times I got to do this challenge back in 2019. And it was one of the toughest up to now physical challenges I've done, doing 3 marathons in 3 days. And when I did it, I ended up beating my time each day, not on purpose. It just worked out that way. I took it easy the first day, took it easy the second day, took it easy the third day, probably pushed a little bit more on the third day, not with the intention to beat it, but I got advice from someone who had ran that, and they told me, the first day you don't want to go all out like you're just running one marathon. You want to be sure to pace yourself. So that's what I did. And so my plan was to go and just completely dominate my previous times. But I had to kind of take a whole month off from running. I went to the doctor today and finally I got medically cleared to start working out again. I can start doing jujitsu. I'm so excited. I even told the doctor I was starting to get a little depressed because I wasn't able to be my physical active self. when you've been active for so long and then it gets taken away. And it's been taken away from me a couple times, from injuries when I got stitches from jujitsu, or when my ACL was hurting a lot, or then when the whole pandemic happened and there was no competitions, no races. And now with the dog, with the dog bite and me uh, recovering from it, it basically, from what I know, you can lose your conditioning in about 1 week, and it's been a month. So I focus more on my upper body. I focused a lot on pull-ups and dips, and I was doing a lot of that. But as far as my legs, even though I was trying to do the good mileage, it's not there. And so now I have to make a decision. Do I go and still do the 3 marathons in 3 days this year, or do I push it back? Part of me wants to do it because I've faced so many obstacles like many of us has, and it's kind of more like I can't quit. That's not what I preach. But the only reason why I don't want to do it is because I really want to obliterate my previous times. I want to prove that what I'm doing works. The workouts that I do works. And if I go and I can't beat my time, then I'm not going to see it as a failure that my workouts don't work, because now I only have like under 2 months to get ready for this challenge. Most people would tell you for one marathon, 2 months is not enough. So for 3 marathons in 3 days, most people are going to tell you not to. And that's where I'm saying, when I first started running, I didn't take it seriously. I could tell you about eating bad. They tell you don't eat before a marathon. One time I was so hungry because I did the Las Vegas marathon. I partied all night and I was just starving, starving. I got egg McMuffins the morning of the marathon before Las Vegas marathon. When I first started running, I didn't know nothing about nutrition. I didn't know about proper shoes. I didn't know about chafing or anything like that. I went to a buffet a few times before the day before marathon thinking, oh, I'm just going to load up on everything because I need energy. So I've done everything as far as nutrition the wrong way. And some of it, you know, kind of like what they told that guy Mikey on Joe Rogan. They're like, that's so catabolic. You're destroying your body. Everybody's body's different. We can always go on, generalize as a whole. This is better for most people, or this type of working out, or in general. But then you really still have to. How do you feel? Get in touch with your body, and the more physically active you are, the more you'll be in touch with your body to know, does this work for me? Does this not work for me? Do I feel sluggish after I eat this? Does it give me more energy? And when you look at some of these players and what they do, and it really depends on the sport and what you're doing. Dean Karnazes is he's known as an ultra marathon man, and he just is an insane runner. He's like the Kobe Bryant of running. He's run marathons nonstop, ran across the United States after running 50 marathons in 50 days. And he'll order a pizza while he's running. Now we're talking about doing 100 miles. You need calories. But he'll order a pizza and he'll roll it up, says like a giant burrito, and he'll eat it like that while he's running. It really depends on the sport that you're doing, the food that you're going to eat. But then especially whatever sport you're into, you start listening to, well, this runner just eats candy, or this MMA fighter just eats carbs, or this MMA fighter's vegan. And try it for yourself. Some people feel good just not eating meat. Some people feel good eating nothing but carbs. Some people, now in the long run, is that the healthiest for you? Those are all things that you have to take in consideration for yourself. Hopefully you're going to a doctor regularly, getting some blood work done. Speaking of that, I went to the doctor. He was talking to me about how a lot of men don't like to go to the doctors, because I was kind of telling him my history, and I'm not a big fan of doctors at all. I don't really like doctors. So he was like, don't, you're not alone. And we started talking about it. So in the future, I think I'll invite him, because, yeah, it's either machismo or a stigma that a lot of men just don't want to go, and it could be too late. And I think that getting your blood work is important, even though I haven't done my blood work in a long time. So now I'm going to go get my blood work. I think my biggest fear is always getting some bad news from a doctor, you know? Usually the only time that it's nice to go to hospital is when someone just gave birth and you're going to go see like a child being born. But besides that, when you go to the doctor, it's usually not good news. And then, growing up, I saw this one movie. It's an old movie, but it's called Kids, and I just remember this movie, and this girl was pretty good overall, basically. And then she goes to the doctor just for moral support with her friend, and she ends up getting the bad news. And I'm like, oh man, that sucks. So I don't know where else I got it from, but I'm just not a fan of doctors. Although I've had a couple doctors on my podcast. Just my experience usually when I go to doctors is like they're not they kind of look at you, in my opinion, as objects, not really as people. But I'm going to say that this was one of the cooler doctors that I met in a while. I actually really liked him, and he seemed very supportive and um, enough for me to want to go get my blood work. So I will be going to do my blood work. And so I was going to have the show a little bit earlier, but because of everything that happened, I was at the doctor still. And I'm just glad I got medically cleared to start working out. um, he basically told me, you're an athlete. When you feel pain, or if you feel pain, stop. So I'm gonna definitely test it out today. I'm excited. It is probably like almost 100 degrees here in California, and it's hot right now. So even though it's so hot, I'm just so excited. I haven't been able to do what I love, follow my passion. So I'm excited to go out there. But later on today, I will be back with another show. I'm gonna be doing the sports and fitness news. We'll be covering all the topics going around, everywhere from MMA to uh, Britney getting sentenced to 9 years in Russia to everything, men's mental health. We'll be talking about trends, fitness, everything. So be sure to join me for that. If you're on Fireside, be sure to smash on my face. That way you can follow me and then find out what time that show will be later on today. So on this article, it was saying that people with physical activities, they have and have a high quality diet. They basically have the chance of reducing death by 17% compared to people who have low levels of physical activity and low quality diet. They are also 19% less likely to die from cardiovascular disease and 27% from certain cancers. The benefits to working out, the list is endless, endless. And man, I wish I remembered that doctor's name. Another doctor, he was on Joe Rogan, and he talks about exercise, how it's so underrated. How if you were to tell somebody, hey, I got this pill, and if you were to take it 3 times a day, it could change your, oh man, I can't remember the statistics. I'll have to go back and I'll be sure to mention it in a future show. But there's nothing as effective as working out. And yet people, for some reason, just won't do it. I personally, that's my whole mission, is to get people more active, to get people to be able to play with their grandkids, to be able to move. I meet so many people that, "Oh, I can't move. I have a bad hip. I had surgery. I had knee this. I had knee that." When a lot of this is just basically preventable. A lot of it's preventable. It's by us not sitting down all day. For those who have sanitary lifestyles, it's by getting up, mixing it up, stretching. Even if you do that, from what I read, even if you don't have a sanitary, well, if you have a sanitary lifestyle and you still work out 3 times a week, they said your chance of death is still higher than someone who maybe is a construction worker or a gardener that's basically moving all day. So the effects of sitting down, and me living that corporate life, cubicle life for over 10 years in working at the bank and other jobs, definitely left my hips tight. I'd always be complaining about my hips between all the running I did or still do, and jujitsu. My hips were really bad. So I've been working on them, and I discovered ATG, which to me, basically they show you the uncommon workouts, the workouts that people are not doing. They're neglecting certain parts of your body that are not worked out. And when you see top athletes, they're usually not getting hurt because from the, like, let's say for example, their quads or their hamstrings. It's usually like a ligament or an ACL or an MCL or your Achilles. Those are the things that people are not working out. So those are the things that I discovered along the way. Now, nutrition, in my opinion, you in the long run can have better performance. Mikey from the Joe Rogan, he kept bringing up that eating the food makes him happy. Now, that to me is also very important, but maybe you can find a balance of eating food that makes you happy. I mean, man, he just eats pasta and pizza pretty much every day, which to me is amazing. Um, yeah, I was very, very good podcast. If you have a chance, go make sure to check it out. I'll put it on the show notes. And I'm actually gonna reach out to him because he not only does he do jujitsu and he trains all day, but he runs 6 miles a day. And I'm a runner. So I would love to share my tips with you about running, and you can share your jujitsu tips with me. So Mikey, I'm gonna be reaching out to you. Hopefully you can be a guest on here as well. And then hopefully this will maybe, I know there was times for me personally where I'm like, man, how am I ever going to be better? Or am I improving? Because I knew I was eating junk, and it was because of, at the time where I lived, it didn't have a kitchen. I didn't have a kitchen. I just had a room that I was renting. There's no, there was no option for me to cook, you know? So my diet for a long time was eating out. I would try to eat and pick healthy foods, but even then, in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, no. And then what about, like I said, people that live in food deserts or don't know any better, but they're just born with that genetic gift, that speed burst, that fast twitch muscle, that explosion, that power. And then there's the people who just been training for so long that do technique, and it doesn't really matter, because I mean, you hear such crazy diets like uh Machida from UFC and Juan Marquez, and I can't remember who else. They would even drink their own urine before they swear up and down that there's benefits to that. That's also considered diet. Is that sustainable? If it's placebo, whatever it is, if you feel it works for you, do it. If you have no other choice but to eat in a food desert until you make it pro, don't condemn the food. That's what I say. Be grateful and thankful for the blessings. If you have the option to eat healthier, watch what you eat. And just because you go to Whole Foods, still be aware that in other countries, a lot of food that is sold in places is banned, and the ingredients and things like artificial colors, especially artificial flavors. From what I've learned is, just for example, you know, they want to be able to basically make money off everything. And if they put natural flavors, well, from my understanding, you can't trademark nature. So you make a flavor by mixing, and it was pretty gross. It was like mixing, like, just for example, I can't remember, but it was like mixing turtle with raccoon scents. And if you mix the turtle and raccoon scents, then it gives you the flavor of cheesecake. And then you can patent that and you can trademark that, and then you can make money. But I'd rather have a natural flavor. I think that if people knew more on how these artificial flavors were made, then maybe they would stop consuming it as much. So it's basically all about just getting information. And now, if I were to be talking about something controversial or something, a wild topic, then I'm sure I would have like millions and millions and millions of listeners. Uh, but a lot of people are turned off by this and don't want to hear it. And some people are just not ready to hear it. And I hear a lot of like nutrition coaches and just coaches in general, just this is the only way. But we're all at different points in our lives. We're all in different seasons of our lives. I think it's very important to realize what season you're in, how much money you have, what are your goals? Are you a recreational? Do you want to compete? Are you trying to become a world champion? Is this your life? Do you have a real legitimate chance, or are you just blowing up pipe dreams or smoke? I never want to discourage anybody from chasing your dream. And I know there's been plenty of times where people tell me you can't do it. And that's like, ooh, you just motivated me. What? you're saying that I can't drink all night and run a marathon? Watch me. What? You shouldn't drink beer and you can beat me? Watch, I'll drink the whole night before and during the marathon and I'll still beat you. Things like that. So there's always people who are going to tell you it can't be done until someone does it. And I think that we all really need to take in consideration the food that we eat and what it's doing to us. No one's going to be a better judge of how you feel with a food except you. Maybe I eat a food and as soon as I eat it, for some reason, to me, it just makes me tired and sleepy each time, even though, let's say, the food in general isn't known to have like that tryptamine or that type of food that makes you sleepy. But for some reason, my body, the way it reacts, it just reacts that way. So listen to your body, learn to listen to your body. And sometimes I, the healthier and the more I work out, the more in touch with my body I am. So maybe in the beginning, you may not feel it, but the more you work out, the more in touch you will be with your body. And then start thinking about, because it's not just food. It's not just food. There's also sleep. I think his name's Stephen Walker, Dr. Stephen Walker. He talks about the importance of sleep. So you could be eating all the healthy food and training right, but if you're not sleeping, so there's never one answer to everything. It's a balance. We are our body, our mind, our spirit, our soul, whatever you want to call it. It's all interconnected. You can't just do one thing. You just can't. I'm just going to do cardio. What about some weight training or resistance training if you don't do weights? Because, man, not everybody lifts weights and not everybody has to. Brock Lesnar no longer lifts weights. He hasn't lifted weights for a long time. He's like he does other type of training. He looks in phenomenal shape. I think he's like 40 years old. And yes, he's always been a physical specimen, but he's not even weight training, and people would think, "Oh yeah, he must be lifting all this weight." So, and then also to a lot of the top bodybuilders that I've seen in the past, now they are having surgeries. They can't walk right. They have issues from pushing so much weight. So these are all things to consider. Everybody's different. Start keeping record of how do you feel, let's say after you go to the gym, if you ate before or if you didn't eat, because I'll also do fasted cardio. So just start paying attention to how you feel. Maybe you feel better, maybe you feel worse. Maybe if you eat this supplement, you feel more energetic, maybe you don't. But then in the long run, you may have to cut out that supplement. As I mentioned, fan of Dr. Wayne Dyer, and yeah, it's like you could maybe be taking some food, or maybe before this kid Mikey was saying he eats pasta, uh, I think before every match, and if you do that for let's say 10 years and it's worked for you, that doesn't mean that in your next phase, say from 30 to 40, that's going to work for you. Maybe your stomach's like, oh, I can't process this anymore and it's time to change. So, also don't get married to the idea of like it has to be permanent. That's what I meant by married. Like, it doesn't have to be permanent. It's okay to, like, hey, my body is no longer okay with this food. It doesn't work for me anymore. It's okay for me to change. But some of us just get into that ritual, that habit, and but it worked for me and it worked for me. Well, maybe it's time for a change. I love the athletes that have longevity, that play for years, the Ironmen, the workhorses. I've always been fascinated by them. And the ones that I've seen that are lasting longer than the average person, and I'm sure genetics has a lot to do with it and other factors, but they're the ones who are not just doing one thing, they're trying to do them all, like Tom Brady, training, studying the game, what he eats. Oh, he's one of the probably healthier guys out there. Also, LeBron James now spending $1.5 million on your body and then not to consume the proper food when you can afford it and to be able to keep going and keep going. I think he almost got the title for scoring this year, which I don't think he's ever done. So that's pretty impressive. I think LeBron James is like 38. Um, Spending $1.5 million on your body, that's not going to do anything if you're not eating properly. And if you're eating properly and spending $1.5 million on trainers and physical fitness and you don't sleep, it's not going to help you either. There's drawbacks to everything. It's got to be a balance. So please, if for some reason you have more than one cheat day or you just don't have access because of lack of funds, don't beat yourself up. Be thankful for the blessings of the foods that you do have. And hopefully you can be able to get access better foods in the future and then start kind of seeing how your body reacts to it. I'm going to invite that kid Mikey who only eats pizza every day and only eats once a day. So he basically fasts all day and he pretends like because he's training the whole day it's crazy though his lifestyle. And he's like, and then if I train all day and I go home and I just relax, I'm like less mobile. So he has to get up and run 6 miles. And I think part of it's you're 25 years old and your body can still do that. But as you get older, I would love to see you still competing from 30 to 40, from 40 to 50. And the only guys that I've seen do this are the guys that are taking care of themselves by eating properly, physically, and also by taking care of their sleep. It depends. Like Mikey, he mentioned he doesn't really want to weight train because when he started taking on bigger guys, he didn't want to use any strength. Jiu-jitsu is all about technique and leverage. So he purposely doesn't weight train, but you can do other types of workouts because as you get older, you can just start getting injured, especially if you're doing high intensity workouts. And the way he mentioned with this a little bit of OCD, he doesn't know when to stop. That's the same thing that was happening to Oscar de la Hoya when Park met him. He was on a diet of cheeseburgers and doing intense workouts. He started having shoulder problems and lower back problems. They switched him. His favorite food became sushi later. He started eating healthier. And that's how he would make weight for 147. So it to me, it's just the more we learn about nutrition or what's not nutritious, the better it is for all of us. And then the more we learn about our body, and the way we can do that is just by being physically active. And what I always recommend is so many people just don't try enough things. Are like, well, I don't like this. Well, I don't like that. Go out and try it all. That way you can really find out what you don't like and what you like. And then you can have some options because there's days where maybe I just don't feel like running, even though I have a marathon. I'll go play basketball. I like tomorrow, I'll play basketball with my son. Finally get to play, been cleared by the doctor. Um, and then let's see here. Oh, we have a request. So let me bring her up here. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Hey, can you listen me?
Yes. Would you like a camera?
No, not camera.
Okay. Welcome.
Uh, actually, I'm in Pakistan and it's 2:35 a.m. here.
Okay.
And actually, I want to ask you that I'm having a proper clean diet. I'm having 5 kilometer walk after 2 hours of dinner. And again, I am not having any type of alcohol and less caffeine. And still, I'm suffering with insomnia.
Mm. That's
What should I do?
have you ever seen a physician regarding the
Yeah, already I have seen many of physicians, psychological problems, and I also have gone through a medication of depression, and actually, I left it. I eliminated before 2 years, and again, doctors prescribed me medicines to sleep and to have the pills. Just like they were the mood boosters, but
Mm.
I actually avoided them, and I actually fought out with my depression, or you can say the anxiety attacks, but still the only problem I'm having is the sleeplessness.
So you mentioned you walk. Do you, uh
I already walk like 5 to 7 kilometers daily
okay.
after 2 hours of dinner. Like I'm trying my level best, and I don't know why I'm getting failed in it. Though I eliminate my depression medicines, though I fought out with these type of things, but still the issue is sleeplessness. Like I don't sleep in the daytime. I don't have any type of naps because I know if I will have nap, it will be a problem in the night to sleep. Like it's 2:35 a.m. here and I'm still up. And I know that I will be up till 5 a.m. or 5:30, 6 a.m. and then I will sleep like 2, 3 hours in the morning.
I was like that for a long, long time. I always had a hard time going to sleep. And me, what I did is basically I just made my workouts more intense. I know you do a lot of walking, but maybe you could do something a little bit more intense that'll drain your body. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
way, when you go home, you're just so exhausted that you fall asleep. That's one thing. And then the other thing, I don't know if you've heard of. I mentioned him earlier, Walker. I think his first name's Stephen Walker. He's like one of the best experts in sleep.
Exactly.
I would look into him a little bit. He always has very good advice. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, I personally just you got to watch your consumption of caffeine. No caffeine after 12 p.m. because then
Mm-hmm.
caffeine, from what Walker was explaining, it's not like because caffeine is really a drug. So it's not like any
Mm-hmm.
other drug. You take it and it still keeps going. So it'll still keep you awake even though your last sip was at 11 in the morning. It's still in your
Mm-hmm.
system, still in your system to like 6 p.m. And then one of the things, like maybe try going hiking. Hiking can be a little bit more intense, or maybe at a local gym you could try taking a class or something that, maybe like a cardio
Mm-hmm.
kickboxing class or something that it's just gonna physically exert you more so that when you do get home, you'll actually be tired.
Mm-hmm.
Reduce the lights as much as possible. That's one thing that because
Mm-hmm.
I had a hard time sleeping, I always try and turn off the lights, trying not to get on my cell phone after a certain time, like usually 9, 10 o'clock the latest. Um, Turn off the
Mm-hmm.
TVs. If they have the special lighting on the phones now, so you don't get that
Mm-hmm.
that light. And yeah, I would stay away from anything that that has caffeine or that'll keep you awake. I can't give any sort of medical advice, but I personally, what I
Mm-hmm.
would do for myself, because for many years I would always be sleeping late. I always used to think maybe if I lived in the opposite side of the world, I would be my body would be right because I'd be going to sleep at this time and waking up. But because I didn't
Mm-hmm.
do that, I just made my exercise routines more vigorous. Um,
Mm-hmm.
one of my clients that I helped train for marathons, she had a hard time sleeping all the time. As our workouts
Mm-hmm.
intensified, she would go to sleep like as soon as she's done working out because it was just so draining. So that the intensity of the workout made her sleep better. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I could recommend is just try switching it up because even walking,
Uh,
even
I I will try to stop using the screens, TV, and the mobile, and inshallah, I will keep in contact with you over here,
great.
and I will keep getting advices from you. And even I'm a foodie actually. I love to eat, I love to cook. And again, when I conclude all of the things after a week, I realized that I sacrifice lots of eating. I cook in the kitchen. Even is always a smell of herbs, spices in my t-shirts, and still, when I was awaking, like all in the lights last night, I was like, "What is this?" But I will keep considering your advice of skipping the screens, and I will not have caffeines after 11 a.m. And then I will share with you, and I will keep getting pieces of advices from you.
Yeah, I would love to hear how you're doing. And then also, as I mentioned, even if you walk, whatever you do, our body's just so remarkable. It'll get used to it. So let's say you're up to walking so many kilometers per day, maybe you should switch it
Mm-hmm.
here and there just to keep your body guessing, like, oh, what are we going to do today? Because then it'll get used to it. And then it's so used to it, it's not really going to make you tired or make you want to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So switching up your
Mm-hmm.
workouts is also another
Mm-hmm.
recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Thank
Are you
you.
are you very welcome and thank you. And how do you pronounce your name?
My name is Sania.
Sonia. Oh, okay, just a little different. Oh, thank you so much for joining me, uh,
Thank you
and
so much for
especially
advising me.
oh yeah, so late or early in the morning where you live. I really
Yeah,
appreciate that.
exactly.
And I hope that it does work for you. And it,
Hope
I don't
so.
know, I don't know what other types of workouts, but yeah, I definitely I used to work in many different gyms, so I don't know if gyms are popular over there or they have variety classes for you to try. Just something maybe a little
Yeah,
bit intense, maybe like once or twice a week, just to switch it up with your walking.
exactly right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me. And then thank you everybody else for joining. I really appreciate it. We've been talking about fitness and food, and if you can be at an elite level with, basically eating junk food. And I too am a foodie. I'm Mexican American. We love to cook with grease. And some of the best tasting food is fried. Uh, but at the same time, it's when I eat it, I'm happy because it's home cooked food. I don't condemn it. And then there's also the ways you could prepare it. Like I, being younger, I used to complain about the food I eat, but now it's like if you get beans and you don't fry them, they're very healthy. They have protein and they're good. I used to complain about having beans all the time and rice. Beans and rice, mom, that's all we ever have. And now beans and rice is fine. It just the portions that you eat, what you're eating it with, when you're eating it, how often you're eating it. But the junk food, the fast food, that is definitely what it can really hurt you. I can't remember the baseball player, but he was eating In and Out. In and Out's like a hamburger place in California. There's a couple in maybe Arizona, Nevada, but it's really good. But this guy would eat In and Out like 3 times a week. When he stopped that, he lost 30 pounds, but he also wasn't playing as good. So a lot of it is mental, and a lot of athletes are very superstitious. I've done a show on that in the past. So some of it could be mental. There's the placebo and the nocebo effect, which are basically a lot of it's in your mind. So the food also can affect the way you think, whether you're cranky, whether you're not. Sugar as well. If you start looking at some of the symptoms of depression and symptoms of withdrawal of sugar, they're almost the same. So sometimes people will think they're depressed, but really it's their diet. So those are all considerations that you want to be aware of. And for all you inspiring athletes that may feel that because you live in a food desert or because you don't have enough money to eat properly that you won't be able to compete with the people that have access to this. History has shown that it doesn't work that way, especially when you're younger. You have a chance if you have the talent, the dedication, and then once you make it, make sure you get those good nutritionists. Make sure, Devon Booker used to, basketball player for the Phoenix Suns. He used to eat Raising Canes every day, and then he started playing in the NBA, and he realized I'm not going to last long. So now he's got his own chef. So the chef prepares a daily food for him. Uh, who was it? Tony Parker, who played for the San Antonio Spurs. The whole time he played, he said he had a professional chef, and he said it was like eating out at a fancy restaurant every day, but the food was quality. I know we all don't have access to professional chefs, but now there's so much information out there. There's podcasts, there's YouTube, there's a television, and on where you can go and look up recipes and alternatives. And okay, so you found out that this ingredient's bad. Well, what can I use to replace that supplement or that ingredient that will make it taste good? And then you try it, like, oh, it doesn't quite taste the same. Well, what else could I use? What else could I try? And depending on where you live, as we have listeners from all over the world, you may have more access or less access to. And over here, I mean, fast food is just so cheap and convenient that even if you want to eat healthier, it might just be easier for you to go get a taco from Taco Bell or and I'm not knocking any of these restaurants. Well, sometimes, but overall, it's like when you do have to eat it, enjoy it, and just take it easy on yourself, but be aware of what you're eating and know um, that you can always work on improving your diet. So I would like to thank everybody for joining me today. I will be back later, and we're just going to be talking about all the fitness trends and sports news uh, that's going on. Some of it will have to do with men's mental health. If you watched UFC, fighter Paddington was talking about that most men, his best friend killed himself the week before the fight. So he gave this message on how we need to talk about it as men, and that we shouldn't be embarrassed, and that most men die between commit suicide between age 18 to 45, and no one really cares, no one really talks about it. If it's women, then we'll talk about it more, but men, and me just coming back from my doctor earlier today, my doctor was saying that he always tells the wives, well, where's your husband, where's your boyfriend, are they going to come? And that most of them tell him that they're not into doctors. And I could understand that. Because I was telling him, yeah, I'm kind of afraid of the doctor. I don't want to go to the doctor. And then he's like, "You're not alone. You're not alone. A lot of guys are like that. They just won't come." So hopefully we can change that. So prevention, staying on top of your health, even though to me my mentality is like, well, I'm just going to stay so fit that I don't have to see a doctor. But in reality, if there's something going on, the only way to know is sometimes through professional help. And so I'm going to go ahead and go through with my blood work, and I'll keep you guys all updated. So maybe it'll inspire other people to go see doctors, because sometimes it could be for lack of sleep. And a lot of times, too, and I agree, uh, they'll just push medication. And I've gone where I'm like, I don't want medication. I don't want medication. And some doctors are better than others. Some will keep pushing and some won't. This doctor's like, I bet you're not into medication. I'm like, no, I'm not. And so this is like one of the doctors that I felt was like actually understanding what I was saying. And so I'll go back because he made me feel more comfortable. So I just want everybody to just kind of be aware of your health, your eating, your sleep, and medical attention is sometimes needed as well. And sometimes medication, not all medication is bad, but me, I'm not giving medical advice. I still recommend people to look into the medication. Maybe there's alternatives. A lot of, at least in the Western side, is medication is just to keep you alive, but not to cure you. And I'm more into preventative and cures, not into just keeping you alive and keeping you with the same disease. So thank you everybody for joining. My name is Coach Ray Z. This has been Athletic Definition, and I will see you later on today. Thank you everybody for joining.